substituted Indians as in Native Americans, you would have been, for any of the groups that you talked about, Kurds and everybody, you'd have been saying the right thing. We all know that the bloodshed to conquer and take the land and so forth by the United States forces from the beginning of their occupation of this area of the land. I'll pass.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I go back to the question of Russia, and you describe Russia and China as rising imperialist powers, competing, and I think it's a distortion, and I don't agree with it, and I think it distorts the analysis of what's happening in Turkey, because I you know, there's a struggle going on, and it needs to be analyzed anyway, of a shift, possible shift of Turkey into a very contradictory process of Turkey shifting into the anti-imperialist camp. And I wonder if you could start to address that.
Sure. Okay, you're going to take one question at a time? Or?
Let me answer that.
Yeah, that's fine.
You're right. It's a contradictory position, and the world is in a transition. And yes, Russia has played a positive role in Syria and today in Venezuela. Okay, they have stopped the U.S. invasions. Okay, but let's not kid ourselves. Russia is not Soviet Union. They are playing in the same field. And they have the power today to stop the US imperialism, but we don't know what will happen tomorrow, because they want to play in the same field. They want to play. They are capitalist countries. And if they grow, if they have a chance, yes, but today, you know, Syria, if the US has not invaded Syria, it's because of Russia. That's open. And that's why Turkey is flirting with them. But let's see, initially Turkey shot down a Russian plane. And then it apologized when Russia, remember what we said about Soviet Union, they wanted a buffer between the imperialist attack. That was Turkey's position. I think the same thing goes on here also. Russia is looking at being in Syria to prevent the United States, but it needs places like Turkey to be on their side. And if so, it's a beneficial, two-way beneficial relationship. And Turkey apologized for shooting down the plane. The same day it said it never apologized. And the same day that they said that if it happens again, we'll shoot it down again. But today, Putin and Turkey are pretty much buddies, and we don't know what's going to happen in Syria, because Turkey is occupying land in Syria illegally. And it's switching sides every other day. And just last week, the Syrian forces start attacking the land occupied by Turkey, and Turkey is now, moving back. So let's see how that affects between Russia and Turkey, the relationship.
Gigi?
Thank you for the presentation, and I really don't have a question yet. I'm not totally understanding the whole thing.
There you are.
No, I'm not.
Hi, well, thank you. And I've lived in Turkey for quite a while, and I know people who call themselves Turkish leftists. You may not call them that, but you have a very controversial interpretation of recent Turkish history. It is not consistent with a lot of people that call themselves Turkish leftists. Maybe you're right, but there's one issue that you don't go on to, and I don't know why, and it follows Richard Fallenbaum's question. For some reason, the United States decided to murder Erdogan. That was the meaning of the coup d'etat of 2016. There must have been some serious reason that led the United States to want to totally eliminate him. This entire operation was planned out of a major US base. that nobody that was opposed to the United States could step foot on. And it's right by, not Van, right, that city, Gaziantep, I forget the name of the city.
It has
the
a
Turkish
big,
city. Why do you think that if somebody opposes the United States, you're just interpreting, oh, well, there's another form of imperialism? There are many people that the United States' imperialism is being stopped. And one place it's being stopped is in a country like Turkey.
Which country?
Turkey is stopping American imperialism. And you're not getting into that. You're just saying, oh, well, they're all imperialists, but you're missing, or maybe I'm missing what you're saying. The United States not only tried to murder Erdogan, because that's what a coup d'etat is. You showed Menderes with his throat around, with a noose around his throat. They tried to murder him, but also they attempted to recruit Islamicists against the government, and that's called Gulenism. Why would the United States go to such great lengths to eliminate Turkey and eliminate the leadership of Turkey, to recruit Islam against Turkey? Something is going on that I think you're missing. And I don't know what's going on.
Okay. So, Mehmet, you want to answer that?
Shortly, yes. There are contradictions between countries, and there are contradictions with the pro-imperialist leaders and imperialism as well. Like Menderes, he was a paranoid anti-communist, but United States did not hesitate to take him out. I believe that Erdogan is becoming a like a heavyweight on United States. Yes, he's been exposed. First of all, he was a very good soldier for United States. Who helped the ISIS in Syria and Iraq? It was Israel and Turkey. ISIS still has their, like the base in Turkey. So Turkey is still a very good provider for United States. So maybe that's why the coup did not happen. But if United States finds an alternative to Erdogan, yes, Erdogan is gone. But tell me who else can manage the economy and give it wholesale to the imperialist camp, wholesale, everything, without people rising up. If you can find an alternative, if CHP or anybody else can do that, yes, United States will bring them. But Erdogan is smart in that he does not allow anybody to rise to the level where they can become a real opposition. I think that's one of the reasons.
I will give people
No, we're going by line.
a 30-second warning. I will keep a clock here. Unfortunately, it's an iPhone and not a Huawei. But-
Would you raise the screen? The clock is behind it.
Okay, I will raise the screen, but I will also warn people when they have 30 seconds left.
Yeah, you said that democratic revolutions are no longer possible and that voting and fascism are not mutually exclusive. And I'm wondering,
I didn't say they were.
no, you can have voting under fascism, right?
Okay.
Yeah. My question is, do you think that the United States, it's a waste of time to vote in the United States, and we'd have the slogan, don't vote, organize?
Go on to some
Good
other-
question. The structure of United States and neo-colonial countries are not the same. There are still remnants and structure of bourgeois democracy in United States. If United States does go into fascism, maybe that could be discussed. But today, I believe voting and elections are still a very good environment to talk about politics, to show people both the Trump and the Democrats are still the same party and they're still working for the finance capital, for the capitalists. So that it creates a good environment. If you can do that, non-voting but organizing, if you can really put this on the street, it's a very effective policy, I would say. Until we have a workers' party, until there is a a real party that can show itself and people are organized and get behind it and expose the system as it is, it's a very effective system if that could be done.
Okay.
I went to Turkey in 2015, and a lot of my friends said, don't go, it's dangerous, it's dangerous. Now, they said there was going to be a coup. Was there an actual coup at that time? This was June 2015.
July 2015.
Yeah, in July there was the coup attempt. Coup attempt, yes.
And could you talk about women, some of the rights of women?
Sure. As much as I criticize Mustafa Kemal, he has actually been instrumental in bringing some rights to women. But I cannot give him the full credit because there was there before that. So if today women are losing most of the rights, it is a continuation of what 1920s and before that, the Ottoman. Remember I said that Turkey is a continuation of the Ottomans. And so, the chickens are coming home to roost. This is what's happening. Atatürk and, the establishment never actually did a fight against the Muslim traditions or Muslim understanding. Let me say, in Turkey today, more than 85,000, if I'm not mistaken, mosques are being led by government officials. They get paid by government. Every Friday prayers and the speech that they're going to give, or the sermons, is dictated by the central Turkish government. They are paid officials of the government. So is this secular? So that's why government is up to its eyeballs in these policies. And if the rights of the women are being rolled back, it's a disaster. It's a disaster for women. That's for sure.
Yeah, I noticed you never mentioned, is this on?
Yes.
You never mentioned something like neoliberalism. And one of the things, like I've been reading Quinn Slobodan, one of the things neoliberalism, at least that strain, does not want, in a sense, are strong leaders who might go against its international dictates. Nationalism is not a good thing for neoliberalists because they want complete unfettered flow of money and goods. So I think you have some contradictions here in the sense that these leaders respond to globalization. There's large nationalist discontent. People within their own countries rise up or express a lot of anger. So you have these leaders who take advantage of this while still somehow having to serve the needs of international capital. But the two are going against each other at times. And could you talk about that a little if you...
Oh, definitely. Thank you for asking. Actually, I did not, differentiate. You're right. I did not say the word neoliberalism, but in the case of Turkey, I do not agree with you on that separation of national and globalist. Turkey, under imperialism, has to be, and has been, and is, and will be internationalist. There is not a single case where the international finance has tried to come into Turkey and it was not allowed. Anything you want from Turkey as foreign capital, you got it. But on rhetoric, we have nationalism. It's against the Kurds. It's against the non-Muslims. It's against the West. Yeah, you talk about that. People on the street hate America. You may have seen the videos of people wiping their noses on dollar bills because the United States is destroying us. Well, I'll give you an example. On the days that Erdogan was throwing off his earphones on Davos against the premier of Israel, okay, and saying, we know you are, child murderers, and walking off the stage. On those days, his son was being accepted into Harvard, coming from a very, very bad school. I mean, he had, I'm wondering if he knows how to read and write, but he was accepted to Harvard because he was working with the relative of that, Israel premier who wrote the letter for his son to be accepted to Harvard. And he was signing business deals. This year alone, the businesses with Israel has risen up to 30% more. This year alone, 2019. So he talks the talk of nationalism. He talks the talk of being against Israel. He talks the talk of, Western world trying to destroy us and getting here. But then the minute he finishes speaking, he gives every concession. I gave you the numbers for privatization. Guess who's buying those factories? It's the international capital. They have a way with Turkey. Nothing stops them.
Would you accept Russia being part of that in the sense that they're buying the Russian missile system? This goes against what the standard international capitalists want.
It does, and this is the contradiction. This is the crack that Erdogan sees in the imperialist order, and he's trying to find a way. Why is Turkey in Syria? The number one thing is that he is attacking the Kurds in Syria. That's the number one reason. But there's another reason. How I showed you nationalism and Ottomanism and so on and so forth. So they have this dream of grabbing land in Syria, becoming the Ottoman Empire. He thinks that by this crack of the world order, he has a chance at doing that. And he thinks he's very smart, pitting United States against Russia and so on and so forth. As you had mentioned, a previous prime minister tried doing that. You don't play imperialist against others and get away with it. You are not an imperialist. You get punished for it. So this is a transitionary phase, and Turkey, I believe, will succumb to NATO, get the S-35s, and if it chooses Russia, it's gonna be a big, big, big step, and it shows more cracks in the imperialist scene. And Russia will, at some time, will try to, and Soviet Union has had the businesses with Turkey. Actually, Soviet Union is responsible for the industrialization of Turkey. Aluminum plants, steel plants, iron plants, even nuclear plants, they had businesses going on. They were the ones who were giving, when United States was giving loans to Turkey, like about 7-8% interest rate, Soviet Union was giving it to them like 0.5%. And they were bringing old Soviet Union and Russia do have business deals, yes, and Russia would love to have that. But still, Turkey provides a lot of vegetables and fruits and everything to Russia. But they would, of course, like to extend these. But Turkey is a NATO member. So they're not free to decide.
Okay, I think we need to move on to your chance. No, hold on, the gentleman here. No, he doesn't want to.
This is where
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to know.
It is interesting because I have been living in Turkey and I'm here.
Is there a way for you to use the microphone?
Yeah, make it closer.
Okay, do you hear now? So I have been kind of like fish because like when you're inside the country you kind of like lose the water. But what has happened these last 10 years, made after Gezi, is like winning like against fascism towards voting. That is the main, I think, thing going on. Like, for example, even you said like there is a resistance to fascism through voting, but I'm not sure. I mean, like against capitalism or something. It is more like anti-Erdogan, and it is more pro this Republican Party. Not even that. I mean, they have won Istanbul because the Kurdish, like they have kind of said, okay, let's win it against the fascists. But it's a loop, you know, like when we look at it, it's a loop of hope. But how do you look at it? I mean, do you think it's a resistance really, or like, for example, what kind of resistance can be? Of course, you mentioned worker party or something, but there is also a Gezi experience I just want to mention here. You know, like it didn't result in anything, but it was an experience on freedom. You know, like anti-authoritarian feelings, and it kind of opened, like how to say, it kind of made a lot of people into the scene of politics. You know, so yeah. How do you regard this?
Thank you for the question. And the reason I didn't go into Gezi is that in my previous, presentation, I think again here, I had gone into that one. But you're absolutely right. I mean, fascism also creates its own contradiction. And because capitalism cannot solve the problems, it needs fascism on one end, but that brings a reaction to that one. And Gezi started with like 3 trees being cut. But it suddenly, nobody expected this, suddenly evolved into a huge mass resistance like the yellow jackets in France today, and it lasted for months. Yes, there is a reaction, and but I'm not so sure if the resistance or the vision of Gezi is really anti-capitalist. There were elements of that. Definitely the whole left was in there, and they tried to lead, and not only on Gezi, but after Gezi, they set up committees of neighborhoods where everybody could sit, and at night, the whole neighborhood could decide what they wanted, where they're going. This was tremendous. But I believe that in order to topple fascism, which I'm not going to say when the opposition party comes, fascism is going to go away. It's not going to go away. It is not going to go away. Fascism in Turkey is structural. So there needs to be something more than just voting. But voting, I'm not putting it down. It is a very, like we have seen last month, is that it's a very, very good platform to pull into politics and expose it. I mean, we didn't get into that one, but the last elections, when Istanbul is still now in contended, the opposition won in Istanbul, and they counted and recounted again, like 4 times, 5 times. They counted the votes. It's still coming up the same, but now with a dictate from the top, they annulled the elections and they're gonna redo this. Okay, this alone shows the people that this is not fair. Something is going on there. And this gets people to discuss the situation, discuss the politics, who is ruling us. And that is a tremendous... Turkey is not in 1970s. If this was happening in 1970s, I would say much differently. But they were able to defeat the left by tortures, killings, murders, and law and order and everything. So that's why Gezi, resistances like Gezi, is a hope. And it's not only there. I can give you another example. In 1970, one simple stupid strike in Istanbul caused the entire working class to walk out of their factories and close all the, the interstate roads and started marching towards downtown Istanbul. This was the most scariest moment of the Turkish Republic. Entire workers of the region closing down the factories, marching towards downtown. All interstates are closed, and as they're marching, more factories are joining them. You know what they had to do? That was also spontaneous, kind of. They had to bring in the union leaders and gave them television and radio microphones to tell them, please quiet down, go back to your factories, everything's okay, don't worry. So that was the way they could handle this. And even the workers were able to push back the army. The army, Turkish army, was pushed back when they tried to confront the workers. So a spontaneous thing like this, it's it is the accumulation of all this years of oppression. Sometimes a spark like Gezi can light it up. So I'm not playing it down, but voting is a good platform that people can start talking about the events.
Nina?
Oh, yeah, first of all, I want to thank you very much for a very great presentation. Secondly, I just wanted you to speak briefly about Turkey and the EU, and I remember there was sort of a back and forth. Is it currently a member of the EU, and what's happening with that, please?
Turkey is not a member, but is kind of related to the EU. It will go through phases, but the saying of the EU for Turkey, I think this summarizes it. Turkey says that Turkey is like a dog tied to the door. It cannot leave, it cannot come in. So this is the state of Turkey. They will not allow Turkey to come in, and they will not allow Turkey to leave and go by itself. And Turkey is an agent of United States inside Europe, like England. And what the Europeans were saying is that United States is trying to marry his bride to Europe, okay? Fiancé, yeah. The United States is marrying his fiancée to Europe because it wants a US agent to be in Europe. No, Turkey is not going to get into Europe. There are many reasons on European side and Turkish side. The latest, last week's event is that Erdogan said, hey, to hell with you guys, I'm glad that you are not even talking about Turkey anymore. And 2 days later, he came back and said, well, you guys are considering us again, thank you very much, we are ready to talk. So just imagine Trump on hormones. That's Erdogan, okay? So that's what's happening.
Okay. Who's got?
Yeah,
okay, Steve.
I think that the inter-imperialist rivalry that's going on now and weakening, U.S. imperialism weakening, is putting the crisis of the countries like Turkey in even more difficult straits. But I think that you have some stereotypes which are not accurate. For example, neo-colonial countries are all fascist. Well, South Korea was a neo-colonial country. It's become an imperialist country. So the idea that it's possible for a neo-colonial country to become imperialist is not accurate in reality. The other thing is the United Front. What is the solution in Turkey? What is the solution in the United States for this social and political crisis? In my view, it's building a united front of the working class for democratic rights and for socialist policies against capitalism, against imperialism. And that is the same in Turkey and other countries. The political weakness right now in the United States and in Turkey, there is no mass working class party, and there is no organization of the working class. Here, the unions do not want to fight Trump. They don't want to mobilize millions of workers against Trump. They're trying to make deals and relying on the Democrats, like for impeachment. That's how we're going to solve the problem. Go through the electoral process. But the reality is the movement of the working class, like by Gezi, which was a mass popular movement, shows that actually there are conditions for a big political development. And frankly, Erdogan is on his way out. There's splits in his party, and the economic crisis in Turkey is undermining his support in Turkey.
30 seconds
politically.
left.
So I think that those are central questions. What do you do? And I think the other thing is, what can we do in the United States to defend the Turkish working class? And I think that has to do with defending journalists in Turkey and teachers and linking up with American workers. That's what one of the tasks we have to do to build solidarity direct solidarity with the Turkish working class.
Well, thank you, Steve. If the bourgeoisie is able to bring in democracy to countries like that, well, let's all support the bourgeoisie. Hey, why not, right? Because they are capable. If we can't bring democracy in Turkey, like you're saying in North Korea, South Korea, if the new bourgeoisie under imperialism can bring democracy, well, let's all support them. Right? In the age of imperialism, this is impossible. The only way to go to real democracy is led by workers and those classes aligned with the workers. We cannot rely on the bourgeoisie, as you say in South Korea. We have not seen the end of South Korea yet. They've been so-called democracy, what, 20 years maybe? After Park regime? What was happening 20 years ago? So it's, you know, can we call this democracy? Well, let's see when the workers really try to you know, gain some real good gains for themselves. Are we going to rely on the bourgeoisie and their democracy, or are we going to have the workers and their class lead to democracy? So that's one thing. Yes. I believe that you are absolutely right. The lack of a working class party is the issue both in United States and in Turkey that cannot bring the, you know, the opposition together, and that's a task that we need to attack. But unfortunately, as you've seen, either in the United States or elsewhere, somehow we are not able to do this. And that's a very good, I believe, suggestion for another session on how to create that working class party and why the attempts have failed, as we have seen in the United States. And those attempts are failing in Turkey as well. Now, solidarity, I agree with the, you know, the journalists, the doctors, the lawyers, academicians, teachers, they all need our support. I mean, they have come to the end of it. The minute you even publish a cartoon, you end up in prison or being killed or, you know, beaten by the police. Yes, you know, that's the only way left now, international support for them to keep them going. And yes, we have, you know, people, the Solidarity Committee with the people of Turkey, those kind of associations that we can, you know, work all together. And I would urge people to get English news from sendika.org, S-E-N-D-I-K-A, Sendika means like syndicate, union, .org. S-E-N-D-I-K-A, sendika.org. We are publishing English news on the labor issues, on women's issues, on, you know, doctors and lawyers, what's going on there. And so check it out, the English page there.
That's just the Turkish news?
Yes.
That's Turkish news in English.
Bonnie, you have a question or comment?
No.
Okay.
We need to end it.
Okay. Yeah, we need to end in 12:30. Okay, do you want to wrap it, or
No,
Jean, how about you?
I did want to say something.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, I've been very interested in China and the Uyghur question. And one of the things, I really liked the email you sent out saying a Turkish holy war against China and dealing with what they call East Turkestan,
yes,
which is China. And you included a map of the greater Turkey, which showed Turkey going from Africa, from North Africa and the Atlantic Ocean, all the way to China, around China, and to Southeast Asia. So that's their conception of greater Turkey. So I don't know if you want to comment that, and on the Uyghurs too. That'd be good. Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing it up, and I enjoyed the presentation here by David and you know, the Uyghur Turks. But it is a central issue in Turkey, and it lies at the center of attacking Syria. This is not the first time. The Turkish and the Ottoman mentality has not died, that the world belongs to the Turkish Empire. Let's remember that on the First World War, the Turkish generals tried to attack the Eastern Front, as they say. The Armenian genocide was one of the reasons, because Armenians were on the way for Turks to expand all the way to Asia and join forces with the, you know, the Eastern Turkestan and get over to Korea and, you know, grab all those lands. So this idiot general, Enver, which is a national hero, takes about 100,000 soldiers in the middle of winter and pushes them all to the mountains, and without a single shot fired, every single one of them dies in the winter conditions. The plan was to conquer Asia. But this mentality has not dwindled. That's why I think you were saying I'm controversial with many of the left. Yes, because I believe the Turkish left is handicapped by Kemalism, nationalism still. It's a very, very educated, I mean, they brainwash you from the age of 3 or 4. I remember on my first year in elementary school, I used to draw maps of the world where I would be leading the charges against the world.